I was there in spirit, although my body was here in Minneapolis working hard to get the vote out. I thought it was a great rally, and I'm very proud of Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert for their efforts and everybody who attended. You know, I've gotten sort of thick skin about this stuff, Amy. I mean, you know, it seems like almost every day something comes up that sort of edges the Muslim community to the edge, to the outside. And in my view, this is a unwelcome development because, as was made very clear in the clip that you played, you know, the overwhelming, nearly all Muslims in this country and in this world basically want what everybody else wants: peace, take care of their kids, decent education, a meal, you know, things like that. And so because that's what Americans want, there's ample room for common cause and cooperation. But unfortunately, you know, you take a tiny minority of extremists and try to make them emblematic of 1.3 billion people, and you expand the number of people who you fear and don't like and are potential enemies of yours, and you shrink the number of people who could be on your side. I mean, one thing I'd like to say to this gentleman who's leading this Tea Party effort is that there are Muslims walking shoulder to shoulder in Iraq. There are Muslims who are we're working with in places like Jordan and in Afghanistan and Pakistan and all over this world. American Muslims, there are 6,000 of them in the United States Armed Forces and are serving their country, and many millions more who are seeing patients every day, representing people in court, looking after their kids right here in the good old USA. So it's too bad, but I have gotten to the point where it just doesn't affect me emotionally anymore. Now, I was a little bit upset by Juan Williams' comment, not because I think he is a bigot. I don't think he is, but I was just disappointed because I thought if anyone would know better, certainly, you know, the producer and author of Eyes on the Prize would know better, but I just sort of now think that, you know, it would be great if maybe you or somebody else would interview Juan and say, look, let's unpack your fear, unpack your worry, so that we can get down to some real humanity here.
Did you think that NPR should have fired him?
You know what? I have decided not to sort of weigh in on their personnel decisions. You know, if they would have kept him, would I have thought they made a mistake? No. Did they fire him? Did I think they made a mistake? No. It's their prerogative. But I do think that Juan's comment offers us an opportunity for a conversation. I would point out to Juan Williams and people who think like him that the people who boarded those planes on 9/11 did everything they could do to not look Muslim. They weren't wearing Muslim garb, whatever that may happen to be.
That was Juan Williams' comment, that he's afraid when he sees people in Muslim garb on a plane. Right.
But the people in Muslim garb are probably the last people you need to worry about, you know, because the attackers were people who were not wearing Muslim garb and were trying to look as mainstream as they could. And so that's really not a rational thing, but that's okay. Human beings are not all rational. Part of us are emotional, and that's part of the human experience. But I do hope that this spike in Islamophobic ideas can cause us to really kind of think about, you know, prejudice, acceptance, belonging, who's in, who's out. What is our national commitment to inclusion and generosity? You know, this is a country that underwent a civil war over who belonged, and then went through a momentous civil rights movement, again, over who belonged. Let's pull on our experience and just rediscover the fact that we shouldn't have any second-class citizens in America. And I think that if we don't really sort of get together, you know, we run certain risks. I'll say this. I urge Muslim, Jewish, Christian congregations to get together, to talk. I personally plan on writing a letter to Juan Williams and inviting him to have a conversation with me, because I don't think he has bad intention. I personally believe that, you know, we need to really promote the interfaith dialogue. And we also, Muslims need to remind our fellow Americans that, you know, when Osama bin Laden and people that want to kill somebody, usually it's somebody who's Muslim. That's a fact. I mean, Al-Shabaab in Somalia kills a lot of Muslims. So I mean, in Iraq, all you got to do is listen to the news every night. All those hundreds of people being killed are Muslim by these terrorist people. So I mean, the fight against terrorism is also a fight that the Muslim community needs to be partnered with everybody else against these homicidal maniacs. So I mean, this is the reality. But being an American Muslim, it's like on the one end you got, you know, this guy who's head of the Tea Party and, you know, Terry Jones and Franklin Graham, and on the other side we got Anwar Awlaki and we got all these extremist people who claim Islam. So, you know, most folks in the American Muslims are in the middle trying to, you know, survive and you know, get their kids to school on time. But that's the reality.
Speaking of what's happening in Yemen, Congressman Ellison, the White House is considering adding armed CIA drones to the arsenal against militants in Yemen, mirroring the agency's Pakistan campaign, and allowing the U.S. Military Special Operations Command units to operate under the CIA would give the U.S. greater leeway to strike at militants without even an explicit approval from the Yemeni government. What are your thoughts on this? All of this, of course, coming out with the 2 bombs that were found on planes headed to Chicago, it looked like.
You know, I'm concerned about that policy. I am concerned about it because, you know, I have endeavored to try to study terrorist ideology, and these people don't expect to defeat the United States with these bombs and stuff. What they want to do is provoke a reaction, which they then can use to whip up use as a communications tool against the United States. So I think that what we may do is go slower here, think through the implications of it, think through the legalities of it, and really try to come up with a real counterterrorism strategy designed to undermine these people. I mean, these terrorist groups, I mean, they're literally hoping to agitate the United States or the larger military power to come back at them, and then when civilians die, they say, see what the U.S. did, and we're the ones to help you. The U.S. is not. So I think that it's important to bear in mind what their strategic objectives are, and not allow ourselves to be tricked into their game plan. So I am concerned about it, and really have reservations. And then on the other front, the whole idea of the drone program is something I think we need to have a real dialogue about, because talk about asymmetric warfare. I mean, this is the ultimate in being able to strike but not be struck back against. And whenever that is the paradigm, you know, you kind of wonder whether or not your threshold for decision making gets lowered. I mean, for example, how many casualties are acceptable? How much evidence do we need before you do a targeted assassination? What is the due process implications? Are victims to be compensated? I mean, there is a whole range of important questions that I don't think we're answering or even really asking. And so so I think that this is raises some very critical issues that I'm very concerned with. I can tell you that the United States used to be a very popular country in Pakistan. Our popularity there has plummeted. I don't think it's a good idea to repeat that scenario in Yemen. And I do believe there's got to be better ways to do this. And let me also say this, Amy. You know, the fact is that you know, that we do need to strengthen diplomatic relations. I mean, Yemen is one of the poorest countries in the world. Yemen is a country where some transnational terrorists can sort of run around without a lot of scrutiny because the Yemeni government is so weak. And so, you know, there are a lot of things that we should do before, you know, we kind of launch into we basically become a military presence in Yemen. And of course, we would be one if we have military wherewithal, hardware, personnel there, and are engaged in fighting, then we're militarily in Yemen without the Congress ever saying a word about it. And the reason that Congress is not really focusing is because there are no body bags to worry about. Nobody's son or daughter is going to come back. And of course, we don't want that, but that then relieves us of the responsibility of really making the tough decisions. So
are you opposed to the
number of issues?
So are you opposed, Congressman Ellison, to the targeted assassination of the American citizen Anwar al-Awlaki, who's believed to be in Yemen now?
Let me say this about that. Anwar al-Awlaki is an extremely problematic individual. I think he is criminally culpable for promoting terrorism, and I don't mean just in some vague way. I mean in some fairly direct ways. I do think Anwar al-Awlaki needs to be held responsible for what he did. But I would rather see Anwar al-Awlaki sitting up in a courtroom and the evidence being marshaled against him, and him getting a sentence that he deserves, like if he can be proved to be responsible for the things I think he's responsible for, getting a life sentence or something like that. But I think that when you do when you do this assassination, you essentially give him what he wants, which is martyrdom. I mean, Anwar al-Awlaki is not scared to get killed. You know, he is somebody who has delusional, fantastic, crazy dreams of being some kind of a martyr. And so why reward him with that? The last thing Anwar al-Awlaki wants to be called is a common criminal, which is what I think he is. So I would rather us pursue a strategy of arresting him and putting him on trial, and not allowing him to claim that he's some sort of a victim. That would be, I think, the preferred way to do it.
Congressman Ellison, last question, and that is about the midterm elections tomorrow.